I care that my money, public tax dollars, should not be wasted teaching kids your beliefs out there. I want them to teach the facts of the scientific facts. That's what I want taught. I want taught in school scientific facts. Stick to those things, and I don't care about the rest. I don't care about anything else.
But in the private school setting, I think
I don't want my money going there either.
Well, see, that's where I think fundamentally, I think our focus should be on, undoing and God Almighty knows, I sure hope and pray that we get to a point in this state where we can undo that Choice Act, because I think that that's the fundamental problem.
Alrighty, welcome in. It's another week of your favorite political podcast. It's Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
I'm good, man. Coming out of this holiday weekend, tried to move smoothly into this week. So far, so good. I'm blessed. It's good week so far. Wait, you didn't have a good holiday?
I had a great holiday. It was a great holiday.
Okay.
I like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's a good holiday. Loved it. Ate a lot of stuff. But didn't overeat. Was still did good. I'm cold, David. I'm cold. I'm cold all the time.
That's true. Yeah.
Cold yesterday afternoon, in the middle of the afternoon, it was warmer in my refrigerator than it was outside. And that's just, I can't live like that. I can't, you know how hard it is to go and get yourself geared up to go and run outside when it's this way. I can't do that. Everything, when I look out the window, everything says go get back in bed. From the grayness of the whole thing to the howling wind to the frigid temperature. I don't want to live like this, man. This is no way to live.
All right. So let me give you something to juxtapose your situation against. I know you got this anti-winter thing going on.
Yes.
I think it was a day before Thanksgiving, or maybe 2 days, 1 to 2 days before Thanksgiving. My heat went out.
Oh.
So you would have been miserable had you been in my house, because we had to wait for a part to come in, and the part didn't come in until yesterday. So that means from for about a solid week, I was living in a house where I had to have space heaters on in order for the room to warm up. Otherwise, in the house, the temperature would drop down to as low as 50 degrees.
Damn, David. Come on, man.
Yes. Woo, that was my life.
You could have hollered at me. I'd have let you stay here. I mean, come on, man.
I was fine. I had space heaters. That's what I'm saying. I had space heaters, so it was, I just had to be strategic. But man, let me tell you, it was at first it was challenging, and then I was able to kind of figure out, what I needed to do to make it work. But man,
no.
So just be thankful. Be thankful.
Well, I'm thankful I'm not that cold. But let me tell you what I would have done. I would have called our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment and said, "Hey, I'm dying. Can you help me? Can you help me, please? Can you show some mercy on me?"
That would have been a good solution. You're right.
Yeah.
That would have been. Yeah.
And listen, but so it's a good transition here because we can that's what everybody needs to be doing over the next couple of weeks here is calling our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment who sponsor this. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment, and calling them up and saying, hey, what you got in terms of stays and packages for me and the wife, or my wife and me and my husband, me and the kids, whoever, your significant other, whatever your situation may be, call them up, because I'm telling you, you will not regret a stay at one of their fine resorts in Wetumpka and Atmore. Visit their location in Birmingham, or I'm sorry, Montgomery as well. They do have the Birmingham Race Course and the Mobile Greyhound Park as well, if you'd like to visit those places. But the resorts in Wetumpka and Atmore are fantastic. They have all the spa treatments that you could ever hope for. They have great restaurants. They have great entertainment around there. Call them up, man, and check out these places. Go and spend some time. We got bowl season coming up. They're going to have the football games coming on with the playoffs, and it's a great experience to go there. They do it top notch. They're one of the largest hospitality employers in the state. They operate, fantastic hotels and service businesses around the state, so they know what they're doing. Call them up, book a stay, go online, Google up Wind Creek Entertainment, pick out one of the places and go and stay. I'm telling you right now, you get this for Christmas, you get a gift certificate, you won't regret it. All righty. Let's get into the main show today.
Yeah.
So there, as you know, I am no fan of the CHOOSE Act. The CHOOSE Act was passed 2 years ago by our state legislature, and they have called it our school choice. School choice, what you keep hearing is giving parents a choice. They're giving them a choice, so they're not trapping kids in failing schools, giving kids a better opportunity.
Which is inherently a lie, if you think about it, because the parents already had a choice.
Yeah.
This act didn't give them more of a choice than they already had. Every parent has a choice.
Well,
what are you talking about?
And also, it's like your boss saying, there's just this failing thing over here that we're not going to worry about it anymore. We're going to give you an opportunity to go over here because I don't know how to fix it. Because those guys that are telling you that this is choice, they're the ones in charge of the education system in this state. They're the ones in charge of fixing it. And they're the ones that's telling you this whole piece of it is broken over here. But instead of fixing it, we're going to give you a way to run away from it.
Exactly. Great point.
Nobody, and also admitting that we're still going to leave all the poorest kids trapped in that failing school, that the school that I'm calling failing, we're still going to leave kids trapped in that school over there and do nothing to fix it. To fix it. But my point has always been about the CHOOSE Act is that we're taking public dollars and we're providing them to private business that is mostly unregulated, mostly lacks oversight of any significant level, certainly not anything close to the level of what our school systems go through, and what our Alabama State Department of Education goes through, what our individual schools go through on a daily basis. Nothing close to that. And so over the last couple of weeks, AL.com has done a couple
and Josh, let me add this too.
Sure.
No unified standards, right? No unified standards. The standards are all over the place.
Yeah, they're all over the place,
right?
Yeah, they're all over the place. They've tried to tell you, and Arthur Orr was behind this, Danny Garrett was behind this. They've tried to tell you that they've put some guardrails in on this thing. The guardrails are hogwash, and this story that we're about to there's a couple of stories here that we're about to relay to you. If you haven't read them so far in AL.com, will further prove exactly how stupid this whole thing is, and what a farce it is, and what a waste of taxpayer money it is, and what you're paying for. AL.com has started going around and looking at the money that's being spent through the CHOOSE Act. And the CHOOSE Act gives kids who are going into private schools, going to private schools, they're giving them $7,000, up to $7,000 each to pay for their private school tuition. And then they're giving $2,000 or so each to homeschool kids to pay for their curriculum that is ostensibly being used at their home. And they have looked at, they're in two separate stories. One story kind of looked at the different private schools and things that have been getting money from these places, and they're as atrocious as you might think. But the one that I want to talk about today is the most recent one that ran this week, in which they looked at some of the vendors that are providing the curriculum materials for homeschool students. And that collection of work, and I have a real hard. I'm struggling because I'm having a hard time defining it, because in here they call them textbooks, but I don't know that I could actually call them really textbooks because um, I'll just read a couple of things here. With some of the nation's weakest homeschooling rules, Alabama is quickly becoming fertile ground for companies profiting from state funded vouchers. The new program leaves it up to families to figure out the quality of a curriculum or tutor with virtually no oversight. Some vendors provide therapy for kids with learning disabilities, others offer art and music lessons or standardized test prep. Several others offer a substitute for school entirely, either through textbook subsidies or online courses. Veritas, a popular online classical education provider, accepts tax credits in Alabama and at least a dozen other states that run voucher like programs. Let's see. I'm going to find the one here that because Veritas is fairly standard. Here's the one that you'll find most trouble. Appalachia, and I'm assuming I'm saying this right. This was a North Carolina based company that publishes Christian textbooks for use in homeschooling. It states in the biology curriculum that is provided by Appalachia that the earth is thousands of years old rather than millions of years old. In a zoology textbook, authors claim dinosaurs came into existence on the sixth day of creation and suggest that they lived among humans. This is a quote from one of the textbooks. If dinosaurs lived millions of years ago, as some scientists believe, how did ancient people who had no access to fossils of these animals produce such accurate artwork depicting them? It is more reasonable to conclude from such pictures that humans and dinosaurs were created together and shared this planet until the dinosaurs went extinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me first say, I the first 12 years of my educational life, meaning from preschool all the way to high school, the end of
Mm-hmm.
high school, I was exclusively educated in a parochial school, a Seventh Day Adventist parochial school, on the south side of Chicago. Now this was back in the 60s and 70s, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I graduated in 1981. So for the most part, 60s and 70s, more 70s.
Right.
We were taught about evolution. We certainly were taught about evolution and standard scientific theories and concepts. Now, we were also taught about creationism.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any problem with children in a parochial setting being taught about creationism. But my problem is if that's all they're taught. And if they're not taught to understand that there is a worldview and a scientifically accepted view that does not reflect a biblical only viewpoint and interpretation of the history of the world. And let's also factor this in. Even in the Christian community, there are differing beliefs about the origins of the earth and the universe.
Mm-hmm.
All Christians don't believe that, and I'm talking about lay Christians, clergy, and Christians who are scientists by profession. They don't all believe that the earth is 6,000 years old or 7,000 years old. There are people in the Christian community who also subscribe to the idea that the earth is millions of years old.
Right.
So to teach one very exclusive, and I would argue limited point of view does a disservice to these children.
Well, all right. So here's my stance. Okay.
Okay.
I wish that I had the ability to dictate that every child go to a quality school and receive a quality, fact-based, scientific-based education that focused on the facts of things and what scientists know to be true and what we can prove to be true. And I wish that every child had that opportunity. I wish that was the case. I wish we could force that on people, because I think we'd be a lot better off today. But we don't. We don't. Parents have the right to fill their kids' heads with all of the ignorant shit that they believe. Okay. And so whatever they want to fill their heads with, they have the right to do that up to, I guess, a point. My problem is I shouldn't be paying for it. All right. There should be, we have set a standard in this country, and it's a standard that's held around the world, and all, industrialized nations around the world, all civilized nations around the world, that education, a basic education, is a betterment to our society. It's a betterment to the country. It is, it's an attribute to all of us to have this. And we have worked very hard, I think, in this country, especially where we enjoy a freedom of religion that's ingrained in our Constitution. I think we've worked very hard here. I think even in this state, we've worked very hard to arrive upon a give and take of facts that still respect everybody, while teaching kids the basic facts, especially when it comes to science and evolution. And I mean, look, there's certain things that I'm just not going to quibble with people about. All right, the Earth isn't flat. It isn't thousands of years old. We know these things. We know the history. We know the stars. We know all of these things that scientists have spent decades and decades and decades now learning and developing technology to use carbon dating, to use a number of different sources to basically gather how old the Earth is, how old the planets are, just all of this stuff. We know these things, and so my point is, if you don't want your kids to know this, okay, I wish that weren't the case. But I'm not paying for that shit. Okay. I should not be forced to pay for that. I should not be forced to pay for that. All right. That's just not, and you can't flip this around the other way. All right. You can't flip this around and say, if I'm a Christian parent, I don't want to have to pay for kids to learn that the Earth is millions of years old. That's not the way this works. That's not the way that this works. Okay. We've worked very hard to set this standard, in our education system, of which these kids, are going there and they're getting scientifically, studied facts. And so that's the way that this works.
Yeah. Wouldn't you have a problem? I know I certainly would, even as a church going person. I would have a problem even if in these private schools they weren't teaching, something that was, teaching exclusively something that was not in line with modern science. I would have a problem. I have my fundamental problem is that private money is being siphoned away. I mean, public money, I'm sorry, is being siphoned away and directed to, private schools, regardless of what they're teaching. I think that's the fundamental problem with this Choice Act. Now, on top of that, I think you make a great point. Not only is the money being siphoned away, but they're teaching a very exclusive, way of thinking using the public money. I think in an ideal setting, Josh, my opinion, ideal setting, and you see here, I'm wearing this sweatshirt that says God's favorite Democrat. I think that creationism should be taught both in public and private school. It doesn't have to be taught as scientific fact. I think it should be taught as what it is, which is a theory. It's a philosophy that's rooted in religion. Young people need to know that just as well. They need to know about the science. They need to know about carbon dating. They need to know about how that works and how carbon dating arrives at the conclusions that it does. They need to know both, in my opinion.
Well, honestly, I don't think that is the place for I don't think that schools have a place in that one. All right, I think that I think public education. And now, if you want to talk about a religious studies class, okay, all right, religious studies to learn the various beliefs of different religions and what they believe and how it informs them. All right, I'm fine with that, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not in a science class. I don't think creationism has, because I think you get. I think that what we do is we stick to the basic facts of things, of what scientists have studied and have come up with over a number of years, through trial and error, through the scientific methods that they have, that we know to be basic scientific theory. And then everything outside of that, I don't. Because listen, I respect your religion. I respect everybody's religious beliefs. Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't care about them. All right, you know what I mean.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
care, and I don't mean that personally as an attack.
No, no, I get
I
it. Yeah.
I don't care that you believe that the lady talked to the snake. You know what I mean? I don't. You know what I mean?
Mhm, mhm.
It's just
And by the
okay,
way, I mean, even that, there are plenty of Christians who believe that
right,
that's storytelling, that
right,
that
right.
is
Yes,
legend, right? So
yeah.
let's be clear. And that's part of the reason why I think it's important to expose kids to these other points of view and
Mhm.
the nuances there. I think they need to understand that there's a diversity of view even in the Christian community on all of these things.
Well, I would certainly be open to a religious studies course that teaches people uh, the various transformations that different biblical texts, or or different religious texts went through over the course of the years, how they changed, why they changed, all those sorts of things, and how these stories kind of developed, and when these things were written. I think that would certainly go a long way in informing a lot of kids about, how much faith they should put into the strict word versus the lessons that maybe should be taken from those words. But this here, though, my problem is, again, is a pretty basic one. I don't care. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your beliefs. I don't care that you think that people were roaming around with dinosaurs. I don't care if you want. I don't care that you think the Earth is flat. I don't care that you think the moon landing was faked. I don't care about any of those things. I care that my money, public tax dollars, should not be wasted teaching kids your beliefs out there. I want them to teach the facts of the scientific facts. That's what I want taught. I want taught in school scientific facts. Stick to those things, and I don't care about the rest. I don't care about anything
But
else.
in the private school setting, I think
I
the
don't
the
want my money
argument.
going there either.
Well, see, that's where I think fundamentally, I think our focus should be on, undoing and God Almighty knows, I sure hope and pray that we get to a point in this state where we can undo that Choice Act.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that's the fundamental problem, not what's being taught in these schools, even though I do think that what's being taught, if it's being taught that way, is extremely limiting and does a disservice to those children. But I think the bigger problem is our public dollars should not be going to these private schools, period.
No, no, it should not be going to the private schools. They should not be going to the homeschool folks or whatever. If you want to do
Yeah,
that,
that's
if
right.
you want to
That's
do
right.
that, then do it.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you
that's
you
right.
can't do it, but
Mhm.
I'm not paying for it. I'm not paying
Right.
for that.
Exactly.
We have set up a system. It's honest to God. I've used this example over and over and over again. It is as ludicrous. It is absolutely as ludicrous as this. It is as ludicrous as somebody calling up and saying, "Hey, the park down the street from my house, the city park, is garbage. I'm going to this private health club over here, and I want you to, if not pay for the whole thing, supplement my membership to this."
Great
It's
example. Great
exactly the
example.
same thing. Okay,
Great
we have
example.
set
Yep.
we have used tax dollars to implement this thing. Now, if you got involved if you got involved, if you worked, if we made sure that the funding was adequate, if we made sure that these kids that are in the failing schools, those schools were improved, and we spent the money and the time and the effort to make sure that they're improved and that things are provided that are needed in those schools, then they wouldn't be failing anymore, and we wouldn't have failing schools, and you wouldn't have to pretend as though a private school or a charter school or homeschooling was a better option for them.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't. You
Yeah.
know?
I also like something else that you talked about. You talked about the people who want to flip it and say, well, if I'm a Christian and I have to pay for a private school, then I should, my tax dollars ought to be reduced by a commiserate amount or something like that. The problem with that is, and why to me that's illogical, is um, the education of the public benefits everyone.
Yes.
Everyone benefits from a public that reads, a public that is informed, a public that understands, hopefully, civics and
Yes.
mathematics and all the things that help us to survive as a society. Well, it would be like to use something that's similar to the analogy you just created. It would be like somebody saying, "Well, I don't drive anymore. I for whatever reason, and so I need to stop. I want the amount of my tax dollars that are allocated towards street upkeep and highways. I want that money back."
Yeah.
Okay, so then what do you do when you need the ambulance to come? What do you do when you want to see your child and your child has to get on the highways to come see you? I mean, it's sort of asinine kind of really limited kind of thinking.
Yes.
So, we ought to be for the general upkeep of society. And we also ought to understand that people who have resources or who have a desire to have something beyond what is offered to the public, if they have the resources to pay for it, then pay for it. But
Yeah.
we shouldn't have to pay for it if you
No.
want more
Yeah.
than what is being offered to the public.
Yeah. Listen, there are some fantastic private schools out there. So I mean,
Yeah.
private schools that have a 100% college acceptance rate that put kids into Ivy League schools all the time, that have, that do fantastic things. Those places are expensive. All right. I've looked at some, and they're, they God bless you if you can afford it. God bless you if you can give your kid the leg up. This is some of the privilege that we talk about sometimes.
Yep.
But still, listen.
Yep.
Hey, I had it. I have some privilege. A lot of people do. That comes in different forms and fashions. Some have more than others. And if you can do it, thank the Lord every night and be on your way. We shouldn't pay for that. We're not paying for that. We're paying. You're right. You're 100% right. This is a societal effort to make sure that our society is an educated society, because we have recognized the benefits of this, of having an educated society. Now, the Republican Party would argue against that because they need the stupid people to keep voting for them. But I would say, especially the MAGA wing of this, they need the stupid people to remain stupid. That's one of the reasons why they're doing this, and one of the reasons why they continue to prey upon folks using religion. All right, this is one that they have convinced y'all to go to these schools, and I would bet you that 90%. I'm gonna put it as high as 90% of these religious schools out here do a worse job of educating kids than the public schools, even some of the ones that you would deem as failing. I would bet you that 90% of the Christian, I'm never going to limit to Christian, but whatever religious school is out there, I'm going to say that up 90% of the public schools out there would do a much better job of educating your kids. You look at the numbers are, they're never better. They're never better. Ever. The public schools always do a better job. There are better systems in place. There are more devoted teachers in place. These people that we're paying public school money to, they're not even certified. They're just fucking people off the street. That's who they are.
Well,
they're just people off the street.
Yeah, in some cases, not all cases. In some
And
cases,
I'm talking
I
about these
know
homeschool places here. He said none of their teachers are certified.
the homeschool. Oh, well, the
Yeah,
homeschool situation is a little different. I was thinking about the private schools, but okay, yeah, the
yeah.
homeschool situation is
Yeah,
different.
in some cases at
Yeah.
private schools, they are certified to a certain degree, but they're still not held to the same standards that we hold the public schools to. They're not. Uh,
Well,
you
they
know?
have some of them have their own systems and their own standards. If you look at,
Hmm.
the Catholic schools, I'm a Seventh day Adventist, the Seventh day Adventist schools, the
Yes.
Baptist schools, that are operated by, in fact, one of the best schools I have heard consistently that one of the best elementary schools in Huntsville is one run by one of the big Baptist churches here in North Huntsville. So I think I want to be careful and not paint too broad a brush here, but I think again the fundamental issue is if it's a great school, fantastic, wonderful, no problem with that, but public money shouldn't be going to
Yeah.
that school.
No, it shouldn't be. And I'm going to say this. This is the last thing that I'll say. All right. I don't
Mhm.
doubt that the Baptist school in Huntsville or whatever school whatever private school that we pick to say is great is great. Here's the difference. They don't open the door up and say, every kid in this area, come here. No matter your situation, no matter no matter your income level, no matter whether or not your parents are involved. And then we're going to judge this school based on just a flat line and not take into account any of those factors. All right. And that's what we do with our public schools. There's a school right now, West Decatur Elementary, where I went to school when I was growing up in Decatur. It is, I want to say right now, nearly 70% English language learners in that school. So it means there's a high
Hmm.
population of Hispanic kids in
Mhm.
that school.
Mhm.
It recently got an above 80 on the school report card, which is honestly, they ought to throw a parade for those teachers. Okay.
Mhm.
With that high level of
Mhm.
English language learners, because of this, the tests they don't take into account this. All right. You don't get, you don't get bonus points because you've taught them English along with teaching them the other things as well.
Right.
But
Right.
this is what they did. I, I guarantee you, those teachers down there in that school is as good as any private school that you would go to. But because
Sure, I
of
wouldn't dispute that.
the systems that are in place and how they're handling stuff and what they do all the time, and that's what I'm saying. And when we talk about public and private, there's a way that, and that's why I'm saying, understand that there are certain ways that we gauge private schools, and they're held to some standards and they do this, but number one, they're not held to the same standards. They're not accepting all kids. They're not then all of these standards and all of this stuff is not public information that's put out there for all the world to see and everybody to judge. And that's where you should have the biggest problem with this thing. But most importantly, it's a private school. And if they can exist, then by God, let them go. And you do however you want to do. But my public
Mm.
dollars should not be going to them. They shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think that public school teachers should be the most revered. That should be the most revered profession in our country, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Public
Yeah,
school teachers.
absolutely.
But then right after that, I would put teachers of any, whether private or
Hmm.
whatever, because fundamentally, teaching our children is the most important. I think it's the most important role
Yeah.
of a society is to educate the children,
Hmm.
so that they can be functional, contributing members of society.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important.
No, I don't think so either. And I'll say this too. There's some charter schools out there that are specialized, and I think this is where Alabama has really missed the boat in terms of what they can do. You look at like the Harlem Day School and some other things that are out there. There are some opportunities I think that we have within our. Everybody talks about the big city schools and the inner city school problems and all this. There are some funding issues that are certainly present, but also there's a lack of imagination in terms of what we can do and how we can best assist kids who are living in high poverty areas. I mean, and listen, we're not talking about just Hispanic kids or just black kids or anything, because
Mm.
there's some kids over in Jackson County over here that are is basically 99% white, and there are a lot of those folks living in some high poverty areas as well that suffer from the
That's
same
right.
issues and
Yeah.
the same problems. And we should do a better job in all of those areas of figuring out ways to use school choice to make things a little bit better for them.
Hey,
And so,
quick shout out to speaking of all of this, and you mentioned Jeffrey Kennedy's program up in Harlem. Shout out to the Village of Promise, which is a nonprofit here that was started by Bobby Bradley and Gloria Batts, two friends of mine, who they have for over 20 years at least, maybe 25 years, they have been working along with the public school system here in Huntsville to try to create an environment where not only children are receiving supplemental support, educationally and in other ways, but they also try to uplift the child's family.
mm,
And God bless them for the work they've been doing all these years, and that they continue to do to try to
mhm.
make a difference in the lives of these children that are attending our public schools.
Yeah, yeah. There are some good people out there that are doing a lot of that kind of work, and those folks are up there at the top as well. And whenever
Mhm.
somebody brings this up, I always think of LeBron James and the school that he tried in
Yeah.
Akron. I know they've had some struggles with academic performance, so I don't know that they're any worse than what they were before he took over. But I know that school has helped thousands of families. To
Mhm.
have coats, have food, have clothing, have a place for the kids to go, a safe spot for them to be every day. Not to mention the scholarships that they've handed out to kids to go to
Mhm.
college. So, I just, anybody that is in that kind of space there and is trying to work within the system to provide a quality education while also addressing some of the issues that so often hold kids back, man, you can't beat that. Again, that's another problem that I have with so many of these private schools, is that's not what they're doing. They're making money, and that's the goal, is to make money off of some of these kids, and off of some of these situations, and they're using the poverty and stuff as a driver to get kids with money into those schools while leaving those folks who have less behind, and that to me is just an abomination. So, all
Mhm.
right. Let's come. We're going to get Andrew Sneed in here. He's running for Congress in the fifth district. I think that just about covers for the fifth district, for the folks running against the guy that was in My Cousin Vinny, on the Republican side. And so we'll get Sneed in here. Alabama politics this week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.